CIET NCERT presents AudioBook Exploring Society, India and Beyond, Textbook of Social Science for Grade 7.
Page 247, Chapter 12, Understanding Markets. Quoting Adam Smith, 18th century economist, I quote, "Prosperity emanates from the market that develops when people need goods and services that they can't create themselves." End quote. The big question: first, what are the markets and how do they function? Second, what is the role of markets in people's lives? Third, what role does the government play in markets? Fourth, how can consumers assess the quality of goods and services they purchase? There's a QR code on the right side of the page. Clicking on the QR code will take you to additional information about this chapter. In the picture on the following page, we will observe people buying and selling goods, vegetables, fruits, clothes, groceries, mobile phones, refrigerators, and so on. These goods result from various types of economic activities: primary, secondary, and tertiary, that you studied in grade 6. But how do these goods reach us? There is an image at the bottom of the page labeled Figure 12.1. The image depicts a busy market scene in an Indian town. There are people buying and selling various goods. Colorful stalls line the street, and vehicles like auto rickshaw and trucks are also there. Page 248. There is an image on this page labeled Figure 12.2. The image depicts a lively urban scene of a street. On one side, people are engaged in various activities like buying mobile phones, shopping for clothes, selling fruits. A lady is even buying stuff directly from her rooftop. There's a cinema hall with a movie poster, a mobile store, a street vendor selling their goods. Delivery workers are carrying boxes, and vehicles like cars and trucks are on the road. Page 249. There's an image on this page. It depicts a lively urban street scene. On one side, people are engaged in various activities like buying mobile phones, shopping for clothes. Delivery workers are carrying boxes. A crane in the background suggests ongoing construction work. The scene captures the hustle and bustle of city life, conveying different occupation and daily activities. Page 250. What is a market? A place where people buy and sell goods is called a market. It is also known as a bazaar, haat in Delhi, and marukate in Kannada. What is it called in your region? This can be at a physical place or, as is becoming popular today, online. Goods and services become available to individuals, households, and businesses through markets. For a long time, people have relied on markets to fulfill their needs and wants for goods and services. In addition, markets connect people, traditions, and ideas. Let's see an example of a market from 16th century India. The term needs is highlighted. In economics, a need is something that a person requires to survive, such as food, water, clothing, and shelter. The term wants is highlighted. In economics, a want is something that a person desires but is not essential for survival. Let's learn about an example of a market from 16th century India. The glorious Hampi Bazaar, Karnataka. There is an image at the middle of the page labeled Figure 12.3, Hampi Bazaar today. This image depicts the ruins of historic Hampi Bazaar in Karnataka, India. It was a prosperous market with long stoned pillars on both the sides where goods were sold. The rocky hills and ancient architecture in background reflects the grandeur of the past. Today it stands as a heritage. The Hampi Bazaar in Karnataka was one of the prosperous markets in the Vijayanagar Empire. which was the center of flourishing trade. The term trade is highlighted. Buying and selling or exchange of goods and services between people or countries. The bazaar was located opposite the Virupaksha temple. The sheer abundance and prosperity of the city have been described in many foreign accounts. The famous Portuguese traveller Domingos Paes called Hampi the best provided city in the world. Due to the wide variety of products traded in the market, grains, seeds, milk, oil, silk, animals like cows, rabbits, horses, and even birds like quails and partridges, another Portuguese traveller, Fernão Nunes, wrote about the bazaar. There were craftsmen also working in their streets, so that you saw made there golden jewels and gewgaws, and you will find all kinds of rubies and diamonds and pearls, with every other kind of precious stone for sale. Sellers of cloths, they being of cotton, grass, and straw in infinite abundance. Page number 251. I do not know who could describe it to be believed, so barren a country is this. It is a mystery how there should be an abundance of everything therein. Let's explore. First, can you imagine what this bazaar must have looked like during its peak? Second, do you know of any old markets from your state? How would they be similar or different from today's markets? Discuss with elders in the family and community. Let's learn more about markets and how they function. Let's explore. Observe the illustration. What are these people discussing? Imagine you and your partner as a buyer and a seller of guavas. Prepare a set of dialogues between both of you and present it in your class as a skit. There's an image at the right side of the page, figure 12.4. The image depicts a vendor selling guavas. Certain features are required for places to be called markets. As you observed in figure 12.2, on introductory big spread page number 248, every market has a buyer and a seller. They both need to agree on a price at which the transaction would take place. Price is an important feature in completing a transaction. The term price is highlighted. Price is the amount at which a buyer is willing to buy and the seller is willing to sell particular goods or services. Page 252. Often the buyers and sellers negotiate and bargain to arrive at an acceptable price. What type of negotiation and bargaining took place in your skit? Think about it. Can you think of a type of market where negotiation is less common and why? Prices and markets. What happens when there are many buyers and sellers in the market? How do prices respond to how buyers and sellers interact in the market? In the figure given below, the sellers want to sell the guavas at 80 rupees per kg. However, buyers may not be willing to buy at that price. If a buyer finds the price very high, he will ask for a price that he is willing to pay. The seller may not be willing to sell at the price offered by the buyer because it would not be profitable for him. The buyer and seller negotiate until a mutually agreeable price is reached. The transaction can then be completed. If such a point is not reached, that is, the point where the buyer and the seller agree on a price, the transaction may not take place. Let's observe some scenarios below to understand this. First, what happens in case the seller fixes the price very high? There's an image at the bottom of the page, labeled figure 12.5. This image depicts a street vendor selling mangoes at a very high price of Rs 80. Several potential buyers are walking past the cart without making a purchase. The illustration answers the question posed in the image, what happens in case the seller fixes the price very high? Page 253. Second, what happens in case the seller fixes the price very low? There's an image at the top of this page labeled figure 12.6. In this image, a fruit vendor who has priced guavas at a very low price of rupees 20. As a result, a large number of buyers are crowding around the cart, and the fruits are almost sold out. This describes that if the prices are too low, demand increases rapidly, possibly leading to shortage and loss for the seller. Third, over time the price of guavas is fixed at one that is just right, not very high for the buyer, not too low for the seller. There's an image at the center of the page labeled figure 12.7, the fair price image. In this image, the guavas are priced at rupees 40, which is fair and balanced. Learning from all three scenarios, the seller can assess approximately what quantity of guavas are needed by the buyers and offer the quantity in the market in future. Over time, the amount of goods offered by the sellers and the amount required by the buyers help determine the price of the goods that is just right, high enough for the seller and low enough for the buyer. Page 254. Think about it. Vegetables are sold cheaper late at night at the weekly market compared to during the day. Why do you think this is so? Garment stores offer heavy discounts on woolen clothing at the end of the winter season. Why does this happen? Markets around us. Markets are present everywhere and in various forms, physical and online markets. A physical market is where buyers can meet the sellers physically and purchase goods or services in exchange for money. This is the most common type of market. It includes weekly markets and haats where vendors sell vegetables, other essential items, and handicraft items lined up on a cart. Local markets with shops and buzzing with vendors selling street food, knickknacks, and so on are also physical markets. There are also multi-story buildings, that is malls in cities and towns spanning large areas with stores inside. Today, buyers and sellers need not necessarily meet in person to engage in a transaction. They can transact from a convenient location, even thousands of kilometers away from each other. They can use shopping applications, apps, or website on a phone or a computer. These apps or websites are created by businesses that make available a wide variety of goods and services. We will read about how this works in a section below. One can buy goods ranging from books, clothes, furniture, and grocery items to electronic items like TVs, mobile phones, and laptops, and get them delivered to their doorstep. Manufacturers can also buy components online to be used as inputs for production of goods. Apart from goods, one can also avail of services like online classes without having to step outside the home. Payments for such services can also be made online. The term inputs for production is highlighted. Materials or resources that are used in the production of goods and services. The term manufacturer is highlighted. A person or company that makes goods for sale. There's an image at the bottom left side of the page, labeled figure 12.8. The image depicts a hand holding a smartphone with an interface of online shopping app selling a variety of products that can be added to cart in a few clicks. Page 255. Think about it. First, what do you think are the pros and cons of online and physical shopping respectively? Explore this question from the point of view of both sellers and buyers. Second, some services require in-person contact, like tailoring, and cannot be provided online. Can you suggest other services where physical markets are needed? There are other types of markets that do not transact goods and services. One of them is the share or stock market. Ask your family members, teachers, or members in your community about it. We will explore these concepts later in the year. There is an image at the center of the page labeled as Figure 12.9 Stock Market. This image depicts a stock market trading floor. Several people are working at computer terminals, analyzing data on large digital screen filled with numbers and graphs. The environment is reflecting financial trading activities. Domestic and international markets. A market where goods and services are bought and sold within the geographical boundaries of the country is called a domestic market. For example, to print this book, paper was procured from big paper mills located all over India. The transaction between the buyer and the seller took place within the country. International markets exist outside a nation's boundary. The seller in one country export their products to another country, or the buyers in one country import products produced in another country. Thus, trade occurs across borders of countries. The term export is highlighted. Selling goods or services produced in one country to a buyer in another country. The term import is highlighted. Buying goods or services from other countries and bringing them into one's own country. Page 256. There is a labeled map on this page, labeled as Figure 12.10. This image is a world map depicting India's exports and imports with different regions. India's exports are marked with blue arrows. First, North America, outsourced services like software. Second, South America, services like chemical products. Third, Africa, for pharmaceutical supplies. Fourth, Europe, for engineering goods like machinery used in food processing, boilers, etc. Fifth, West Asia, for refined petroleum products. India's imports are marked with green arrows. First, North America, for aircraft and components. Second, South America, for mineral ores like copper. Third, Africa, for diamonds. Fourth, Europe, for electrical equipments. Fifth, Southeast Asia, for vegetable oils. This map is to help us understand India's role in global trade, what it sells and buys from different parts of the world. Don't miss out. India was the world's largest importer of vegetable oils like palm oil, sunflower oil, and soybean oil in 2024. Most of the palm oil is imported from Malaysia, Indonesia, and Thailand. Page 257. Wholesale and retail markets. Several participants play their role in the smooth functioning of the markets. There's a flowchart at the beginning of the page labeled as Figure 12.11. This image is of a flowchart depicting how goods move from producer to the consumer through various stages. Flow of the goods is as follows. First, input like raw materials. Second, producer who uses the inputs to manufacture or produce the finished products. Third, wholesaler who buys goods in bulk from producers and distributes them in large quantities. Fourth, retailer who buys smaller quantities from wholesalers and sell them to public. Fifth, consumer, the final buyer who uses the products. Let's explore. Observe the diagram and describe the flow of goods from the manufacturer or producer to the consumer. What is the role of the wholesaler and the retailer in the flow? In the case of physical markets, wholesalers buy goods in large quantities from the producer or manufacturer of the products. For example, Grains, vegetables, and fruits are bought by wholesalers directly from the farms. The produce is then stored in large warehouses called godowns. In the case of perishables, the warehouses may also have cold storage facilities. There's an image at the bottom right side of the page labeled Figure 12.12 Cold Storage Facility for Vegetables. The image depicts cold storage, which is a place where food, chemicals, etc. can be kept fresh or frozen until it is needed. Page 258. The term cold storage is highlighted. Specialized warehouses are designed to maintain specific low temperatures to preserve perishable goods. They are then brought to markets called mandis. There are 4 images on this page. Figure 12.13 Warehouse storing grains. It's a big quiet room filled with tall stacks of bags filled with food like wheat or rice, pulses, etc. Figure 12.14 Large warehouses of wholesalers. It's an image depicting a huge space with a lot of boxes and crates stacked in high. Similarly, there exist wholesale markets for other commodities like chemicals, electronic items, and components, construction materials, automotive parts, etc. The other 2 images are at the center of the page, labeled Figure 12.15 Khari Bauli Spice Market, Old Delhi, Spices and Dry Fruits. The image depicts a busy, narrow path with lots of different spices like cinnamon, cardamom, and pepper filling in the air, vendors calling out for sellers, and people buying and passing by. Figure 12.16 Flower Market, Bangalore. It's a colorful place filled with the sweet flowers like roses, marigolds, and jasmine. The wholesalers supply goods to the shops and stores located near households. These shopkeepers are called retailers. They sell goods to final consumers like us. Unlike wholesalers, retailers sell in small quantities and the products are meant for consumption rather than resale. Retail stores also exist for services like salons, movie theaters, and restaurants. Retailers help increase the availability of goods and services to households. Page 259. There is an image at the beginning of the page labeled as Figure 12.17 Johri Bazaar, Jaipur, Gems and Jewelry. The image depicts a lively street with shops selling shiny jewelry, a place filled with sound of people bargaining, jewelry clinking, and vendors talking. In some cases, it may be difficult for wholesalers to reach a large number of retailers because of distances and terrains. Distributors help to bridge this gap. The term distributors is highlighted. Individuals or businesses who supply goods from manufacturers and wholesalers to retailers. Do you remember the middlemen from milk in the Amul story from grade 6? However, the distribution channel is different in the case of online markets. Here, manufacturers send bulk quantities of their products to the warehouse of the business that sells through online apps. Consumers buy the product from the online option, website, or mobile application. These businesses are called aggregators. The aggregator then packs the products and delivers them to the online buyer. The term aggregator is highlighted. Website or mobile application organizes and combines offers from multiple sellers and sells them to consumers at one place. There are 2 images at the bottom of this page labeled as Figure 12.18 Garment Shop. It is a cozy space filled with rows of clothes hanging on racks. There are tables with folded clothes like t-shirts and sweaters. In Figure 12.19, there is a quiet space called salon where people get their hair done, a stylist is touching someone's hair to give a massage. Page 260. There are two images at the top of this page labeled as Figure 12.20, a mall, and Figure 12.21, grocery store. In the first image, there's a huge, echoing space with lots of levels. People can be observed walking, talking, and shopping. There are lots of shops and food outlets inside. In the second image, there's a grocery store, a space filled with shelves of food like spices, snacks, and other things people need for cooking. People can be observed picking items, bags rustling, and vendors talking. Let's explore the chain of supply in physical markets for the textile market in Surat, Gujarat, Asia's oldest textile market and the city famously known as a textile hub. The Surat textile market consists of thousands of factories manufacturing cotton and synthetic textiles. In the case of cotton textiles, raw cotton is received here through cotton mandis from nearby states like Maharashtra as well as from other parts of Gujarat. It is transformed into finished fabric or garments after processing at various stages. Weaving on bower looms, dyeing in processing units, and so on. The product moves from one stage to another through markets. For woven fabric, for dyed fabric, and for finished products, saris or ready-made garments, for example. There's a flowchart of images on the right side of the page labeled as Figure 12.22. The image depicts a flowchart describing the stage of cotton production from cultivation to retail. The stages are first cotton field, second manufacturing, cotton being processed in the factory, third textile production, a photo of sewing machines making garments, fourth garment manufacturing, a photo of workers sewing clothes, fifth retail, a photo of clothing store with racks of garments. Page 261. The finished product from the fabric is traded by the manufacturing unit in the wholesale market. The wholesalers are an important channel of supply as they oversee the distribution of products to the small shopkeepers and big retail stores across the country and internationally. They also assess how much product is required by retailers. This helps maintain the stock of products with the manufacturers and ensures an uninterrupted supply of products to the end consumers. There is an image at the middle of the page labeled as Figure 12.23, Supply of Raw Cotton from Surrounding Cotton Clusters to Surat. The image depicts the map of India with the supply of raw cotton from surrounding cotton clusters to Surat. This map illustrates the supply of raw cotton to Surat from nearby cotton producing areas. The map uses shades of green to indicate varying level of cotton production like low, medium, high in districts like Sundarnagar, Jamnagar, Amreli, Surat and others in the region. There's another image at the bottom of the page labeled as Figure 12.24 Surat City Map. In this map, the key features of Surat city, including the location of a port, airport, railway, roads, river, textile market, and Surat city boundaries can be observed. Page 262. There's an image at the top of this page labeled as Figure 12.25, a wholesaler's warehouse of fabric. The image depicts a photo of a wholesaler's warehouse of fabric where the warehouse has stacks of colorful fabrics. Let's explore. Ask your nearest retailer about a product, its place of origin, and the chain of suppliers in the process of the product reaching the shop. Trace this using a flowchart like figure 12.11 and share it in class. Don't miss out. First, apart from textiles, Surat is home to the largest diamond industry in the world. Approximately 1.5 million artisans are involved in activities like cutting and polishing diamonds on a gigantic scale. Trade flourished here from the 16th century onwards. The city's location on the west coast led to the setting up of ports and road networks that continue to be important today. Communities of expert artisans and skilled persons have lived here for centuries. Their skills have been passed over generations, making it a flourishing city. Second, can you spot the port, highway and railway network on the map in figure 12.24? How do you think they helped make Surat a trading hub? Page 263. The role of markets in people's lives. As we have observed from the sections above, markets play an important role in the economic life of the people. It facilitates transactions between producers and consumers. It helps individuals, households, and businesses access goods and services that they need and cannot produce themselves. Think about it. We have discussed different dimensions of markets. Can we imagine what life might be like without markets? What would happen if farmers did not bring rice, wheat, dal, vegetables, and fruits to the market? What would happen if the producers of cloth in Surat could not procure inputs like cotton from markets? In this section, we will explore a few other dimensions of the role of markets. Akriti is a professional artist who creates oil paintings on canvas. Her paintings are appreciated, but she finds it difficult to find buyers. She is worried about where to sell the paintings and what price she should offer them for. Unlike the case of guavas, there are fewer local buyers and sellers for artwork. Can you think of other products which do not have a ready market? How does it affect those willing to buy or sell? What are the different ways in which artists can find buyers for their work today? How markets benefit society? Let's explore. Consumers prefer to buy refrigerators that use less electricity. When a large number of consumers begin to ask for refrigerators that use less electricity, what do you think happens in the network which we studied in figure 12.11? Page 264. The producers get an indication as to what consumers would buy. They produce refrigerators which use less electricity. This benefits society through the production of energy-efficient refrigerators. Although buying and selling is an economic activity that involves monetary exchange, interactions in the markets often move beyond just inquiring about the product or service or negotiations between parties. Often, a relationship develops between buyers and sellers that continues even across generations. Some families have long-lasting trusted relationships with their tailor, jeweler, and doctor over decades. Many families in India maintain an account with the local grocer that is settled at the end of the month. So while the primary role of the market is to promote economic activities, it also has non-economic significance in many people's lives. Mother's Market, Aima Kethal, is in Meiteis language of Manipur, is a unique market in Imphal. About 3,000 women own and run all the shops in this market. They sell vegetables, clothes, including traditional Manipuri attire, handloom and handicrafts, local produce, and daily essentials that people in the city and the surrounding areas require. On one hand, the market provides employment, becoming an important source of income for thousands of families. On the other hand, the market is a melting pot of cultures. People from different communities come together to exchange ideas and enjoy shared traditions. There's an image at the bottom of the page labeled as Figure 12.26 Eima Kethal of Imphal. The figure depicts a photo of Eima Kethal, a market in Imphal, Manipur. The market is run by about 3,000 women who sells vegetables, clothes, including traditional Manipuri attire, handloom and handicrafts, local produce and daily essentials. It is a colorful market combining culture and showcasing the traditions of the state. Page 265. Don't miss out. There are many traditions followed even today that go beyond just buying and selling. In South India, the sellers of haldi and kumkum, turmeric and vermilion give a small quantity of haldi and kumkum separately at no charge as a mark of auspiciousness and good wishes to the buyer. There is an image at the top right side of the page labeled as Figure 12.27. This figure is an illustration of a man sitting among bowls of spices like turmeric and kumkum with shelves in the background. Let's explore. Have you observed any such practices in your community or neighborhood? Describe the practice as a drawing or in a short paragraph. Government's role in the market. Markets function through interactions of demand from buyers and supply by sellers. The term demand is highlighted. Quantity of a product or service that consumers are willing and able to purchase at a particular price at a given time. The term supply is highlighted. Quantity of a product or service that sellers are willing and able to sell at a particular price at a given time. However, there are some situations in which this may not work very well. The government plays a crucial role in such situations. It monitors the interaction between consumers and producers and fair determination of price, controlling prices for protecting buyers and sellers. The government controls the prices of certain goods. For example, it sets the maximum price that the seller can charge. Several essential goods and services, such as life-saving drugs, have an upper limit on their prices. Another instance is where the government sets the minimum price at which essential agricultural products like wheat, paddy, and maize can be sold. This ensures that farmers do not incur losses. The government also sets minimum wages for work done by employees so that employers make fair payments to them. Page 266. However, the government needs to carefully implement such price limits. If the price is too low, producer would not have any motivation to produce. If the prices are too high, consumers would be disadvantaged. Let's explore. First, onions are an important part of the cuisine in most parts of India. In some seasons, the supply of onions comes down in the market. What do you think happens to the price of onions when this happens? Second, what will happen if people supplying onions do not bring the required quantities to the market? What do you think the government should do in this situation? Ensuring quality and safety standards. The government has a role in ensuring the welfare of consumers and protecting them from unfair practices. The government ensures that the manufacturers follow the required quality and safety standards while producing goods and delivering services. For instance, pharmaceutical companies manufacture medicines for treating diseases. The government sets procedures for approvals of medicines and conducts sample testing to check if the produced drug meets standards of quality. These regulations ensure the quality and safety of the drugs so that there is no risk to the consumer's health. Mitigating the external effects of markets. Markets sometimes have significant effects beyond the selling and buying. For example, the markets for certain goods require production in factories that could pollute the environment. The government plays a crucial role in understanding and controlling such effects of markets. For example, what happens when the manufacturing of certain items, like single-use plastics, pollutes the environment and poses health risks to consumers. In such cases, the government intervenes by implementing strict regulations to mitigate these negative effects. Page 267. Similarly, the government puts in place systems to monitor the weights and measures of the packaged products to check the net quantity contained in the package. Think about it. The practice of rulers protecting consumers is not a phenomenon of modern India. Kautilya's Arthashastra includes instructions for the traders trading in clarified butter, ghee. It mentions that buyers shall be given 1/50th part more as manasarva to compensate for the reduction in quantity owing to the ghee, sticking to the measuring can. Governments make rules to ensure markets work fairly and consumers are not exploited. However, too many rules can make it difficult for markets to function properly. Providing public goods. Producers make and sell goods and services to be able to make a profit. However, there are some goods and services that producers do not expect to make a profit on. For example, public parks, roads, policing, and so on. In addition, you read about the rights that citizens have to certain welfare provisions in a previous chapter. So the government provides these public goods and services. The term public goods is highlighted. Service or commodity that is accessible or available to all members of a society. Their present uses does not diminish their availability for future use. Think about it. First, what are the other areas where you can see the government being involved in the markets? Second, are there areas where government intervention needs to be reduced, discussed with family or relatives? How can consumers assess the quality of products and services? Markets enable access to a wide variety of goods and services to consumers. How will consumers decide what they would like to buy? Page 268. Think about it. There's a marbles competition in your neighborhood with the team in the next street. You want to buy new marbles for the competition. You have rupees 150 saved up. You go to a shop to buy the marbles. What are the qualities you would look for in the marbles so that you can win the competition? There's an image at the top right side of the page labeled as figure 12.28, where a boy can be observed playing with marbles of different colors. Do you think about the price, size of the marbles, strength, and the attractive colors? As you know, every consumer would need to assess the quality of products that they are buying. In the following section, we will look at various ways in which this can be done. Suppose your parent asks you to get a 1 kg packet of gram flour from the nearby grocer. There are different types of packets available at the shop, such as the one given in the figure below. Observe it carefully. How would you determine that the quality of gram flour meets the required standards? There's an image at the bottom of the page labeled as figure 12.29. The image depicts the picture of a 2 kg packet of gram flour labeling details like net quantity, date of manufacture, best before date, name and address of the manufacturer, FSSAI mark and license number. On the left side, there is batch number, MRP, nutrition facts panel, ingredients list, allergen declaration. Page 269. Did you notice the FSSAI logo? FSSAI means Food Safety and Standards Authority of India, and its symbol on the food packets and cartons indicate that food has been tested by the government and is safe to consume. There is an image at the top right side of the page of the logo of FSSAI. Government agencies provide such certifications that help buyers to assess product quality. Their presence on the product or its package confirms that the product fulfills the minimum quality standards. Let's study what each of these labels mean. First, just like FSSAI, there is Indian Standards Institution ISI mark issued by the Bureau of India Standards BIS. This symbol is generally present on electrical appliances, construction materials, automotive tires, paper, etc. This ensures quality and that the product is safe to use. There is an image at the right side of the page of Government of India logo, often used for official certifications or standard. In the inner circle of the logo, AG mark AGMARK is mentioned vertically. Second, similarly, AGMARK. The AG for agriculture is the certification mark for agricultural products like vegetables, fruits, cereals, pulses, spices, honey, etc. Third, electronic items like TVs, laptops, air conditioners, etc. have BEE star rating. BEE stands for Bureau of Energy Efficiency. These ratings are printed on the product package as stars. Higher stars indicate that the appliance uses less energy and electricity. This is good for consumers as the electricity bill would be lesser and good for the environment as well. There is an image at the right side of the page depicting the BEE star rating logo, a logo for the Bureau of Energy Efficiency's star rating, indicating energy efficiency of appliance. Let's explore. Check out the BEE star labels on the electronic devices in your home and make a chart of all the devices in an increasing order of their energy efficiency. On the other hand, purchase decisions of buyers are influenced by the reputation of the product. This is built through word of mouth. Have your family members bought some product because their friends or relatives suggested it to them? Page 270. Online reviews and feedback from other consumers about products and services help us decide whether to buy or not while shopping online. There's an image at the top of the page labeled as figure 12.30. The given figure depicts a person holding a smartphone with speech bubbles containing stars and a smiley face above it. This represents online reviews and feedback from other consumers about products and services which help decide whether to buy or not while online shopping. Before we move on, first, Markets facilitate exchange between buyers and sellers at a mutually agreed price, which is determined by the demand from buyers and supply by sellers. Second, markets have a chain of participants like manufacturers, wholesalers, distributors, and retailers that enable supply of goods to the final consumers. Third, markets are also places for interaction as they bring people together and enable exchange of ideas and traditions. Fourth, the government plays a regulatory role in the markets to promote quality standards for products and services and fair practices in the market. However, consumers can also assess the quality of products and services through certification marks on the products from government agencies and through online reviews. Page 271. Questions and activities. First, what are the main features of a market? Recall a recent visit to a market to purchase a product. What are the different features of a market that you observed during this visit? Second, remember the epigraph from a famous economist at the beginning of the chapter. Discuss its relevance in the context of the chapter you have read. Third, in the example of buying and selling of guavas, imagine that the seller is getting a good price and is able to make a profit. He will try to get more guavas from farmers to be able to sell them at the same price and increase his earnings. What is the farmer likely to do in this kind of a situation? Do you think he will start thinking about the demand for guavas in the next season? What is likely to be his response? Fourth, match the following types of markets with their characteristics. There is a table on this page divided in 3 parts. First part is of serial number, second part is of types of markets, third part is of criteria. First, physical market. Second, online market. Third, domestic market. Fourth, international market. Fifth, wholesale market. Sixth, retail market. The criteria are as follow. Goods and services flow outside the nation's boundaries. Second, deals in bulk quantities. Third, serves the final consumers with goods and services. Fourth, requires physical presence of buyers and sellers. Fifth, buyers and sellers meet virtually and can transact at any time. Sixth, lies within the boundaries of a nation. Fifth, prices are generally determined by the interaction between demand from buyers and supply by sellers. Can you think of products where prices are high despite lesser number of buyers demanding the product? What could be the reasons for that? Page 272. Look at the real-life situation at a retail seller of vegetables encountered. A family came to shop for vegetables. The price of beans that the seller on the cart was offering was Rs 30 per kg. The lady started to bargain with the seller to bring the price down to 25 rupees per kg. The seller protested and refused to sell at that price, saying he would make a loss at that price. The lady walks away. The family then goes to a super bazaar nearby. They buy vegetables in the super bazaar, where they pay Rs 40 per kg for the beans that is neatly packed in a plastic bag. What are the reasons that the family does this? Are there factors that affect buying and selling which are not directly connected to price? Seventh, there are some districts in India that are famous for growing tomatoes. However, during some seasons, the situation is not good for farmers. With a large quantity of harvest, There are reports of farmers throwing away their produce and all their hard work going to waste. Why do you think farmers do this? What role can wholesalers play in such situations? What are the possible ways of ensuring that the tomatoes are not wasted and the farmers are also not at a loss? 8th, have you heard about or visited a school carnival or fair organized by your school or any other school? Discuss with your friends and teachers about the kind of activities organized by students there. How do they conduct selling and negotiation with the buyers? 9th, choose any 5 products and check out the label with the certification signs discussed in the chapter. Do you find the products that did not have a logo? Why do you think this is so? 10th, you and your classmates have manufactured a soap bar. Design a label for its packaging. What, in your opinion, should be mentioned on the label for the consumer to know the product better? Chapter 12 ends here.
Exploring Society, India and Beyond. You are just listening to this audiobook, Textbook of Social Science for Grade 7. Narration, Mansi Chauhan. Sound recordist, Ekant Vashisht. Assistance in production, Arshad Ahmed. Directed and produced by Vimlesh Chaudhary. This audiobook is brought to you by CIET NCERT, New Delhi, India.